What's up, everybody, and welcome to episode 7 of the ButtonPress podcast. Today, I'm here with my brother Erik. It's been a while, and we're going to be doing a fun episode that we've been planning for quite some time now. We're going to be ranking all 8 of the main home Nintendo consoles. Everything from the NES all the way up to the Switch 2. We have our personal list, but we're going to be compiling a list that are going to combine both of our opinions, and we're going to try and land on a pretty solid list here of the top 8 consoles.
Yeah. Thank you for having me back. You have seen me on here before. I think it's only fitting that I come back for episode 007. I'm excited to be here. I think I know some of your list. You probably know some of mine. But I think it's going to be fun trying to see where we differ and have a discussion and try to, come to a consensus on a list between the two of us. So I think it'll make for a fun discussion, and I'm excited to see where we end up.
That's right. But before we jump into our ranking, we are going to be doing this week's hot take.
Yeah, I'm excited. I've seen you start doing this, and I got to be honest. I usually don't get nervous, coming on here, but I'm a little, amped up to see what this take will be.
I mean, it's nothing too crazy, and I've greatly appreciated all the submissions that I've gotten on the videos that I posted. And before I read off today's hot take, if you have any hot takes that revolve around video games and you want us to discuss them on future episodes of the Button Press podcast, leave a comment either below this video or below any other future episodes. Just state that it is a hot take, and we'll throw it on the list of things that we are going to discuss. And we're going to probably take a lot of the hot takes that we feel like we have strong opinions or enough knowledge to discuss. Some of them, if it's talking about a game series that we both don't have experience on, probably won't talk about it unless I'm with a guest that is very experienced with that game series. So, this week's hot take comes from Gaming Since the 80s. And they say, the 4th generation of video games is the best, which is the Super Nintendo, the Genesis, and the Mega Drive, and will never be replicated again. So right off the bat, do you agree with that?
I do not. No? I definitely do not agree with that. Do you?
Partially. I mean, so the way I like to break up best generations, because it's such a common discussion topic of what generation is the best, and it's usually the one that you played as, or, that you experienced when you were a kid.
Yeah.
But the way I like to break it up is different generations are the best in different categories.
Okay.
So when it comes to the 4th generation, especially Super Nintendo, I think that is the best generation for 2D platformers. I think it is below none. We like Super Mario World, Donkey Kong Country. I know this isn't necessarily a platformer, but you get Super Metroid, just those 2D style games, but especially platformers. I think this generation is the king of that, and no generation has come close since.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The scope that I'm looking at it through is more so. Put it this way: if there are other people who have been gaming since the 80s, they would probably agree. But I like to judge on the console, not the nostalgia. Meaning,
That's true.
Meaning, I didn't grow up in the 80s with that as the hot new system. So for me, I have a deeper connection to other consoles, right? If you were to give someone who just arrived on this planet, they've never played any video game ever, and you gave them one console from each generation and said, which one is the best? I don't necessarily think they're picking that one.
No.
So I would agree in the sense that if you grew up playing those consoles like consistently, and that was your era of that young childlike wonder of gaming, then I'm sure you would agree with this. For me personally, that's not my opinion. I think that, again, I see this in a lot of shows. If you ever watch anything on YouTube or on TV, I get clips from like Pawn Stars, American Pickers, like all these things, and they always say buy the product, not the story. Meaning, someone could come into a pawn shop with an old, dirty, broken down musical instrument, but they'll say, hey, well, this was played by this artist. Yes, there's some added value because that person has owned it, but how much can be in question, right? If you loved, I don't know, name a famous musician. I can't think of one off the top of my head. Louis Armstrong. Okay, you get.
That's what popped in my head first.
Sure.
When you said instrument.
He played the trumpet, I assume.
Yes, he did.
Yes. So again, if you are the biggest Louis Armstrong fan, that might add tons of value for you. But someone for me who is not the biggest Louis Armstrong fan,
right.
I think he's great, but I don't listen to him consistently. To me, that's just a dirty old trumpet.
And you narrow your market for selling that item, I guess.
Yeah. It's like the phrase they always use is buy the item, not the story. And that could be kind of what I'm applying in this situation. We talked about how we're going to rank our own list of Nintendo consoles. I'm going to be ranking on the story, not just the console.
Yeah,
so
for sure. Do you have a favorite video game generation? I think, oh man, that's tough. I think mine off the bat is, or just off the top of my head, is like N64, PS1. I guess I'd be considered fifth generation.
I think I'm probably one above that.
GameCube, PS2,
maybe around there.
Honestly, like N64, PS1 is my favorite, but I know I just said there's no best, but PS2 and GameCube are just like, they're just two amazing consoles.
Yeah, we'll talk about it a little bit more as we get into the list here of why I ranked certain things where I ranked them. Some of the rankings that I did, it kind of hurt because there's things that I really, really like that I put low on my list for certain reasons, and we'll kind of get into that more, and I'll explain what I'm really talking about. I just don't want to spoil anything for further in the episode.
With that said, I think that kind of covers the hot take for this week. Again, if you have any more hot takes that you'd like us to discuss, put them in the comment section below this video or any other future episodes. But I think it is time to get right into the topic of this episode, which is ranking the main 8 home Nintendo game consoles. Mm-hmm. And before we start, I think I want to just lay down some ground rules.
Okay.
So people understand where we're coming from with this stuff. We're going to take backwards compatibility into account, but we are not counting the games from the past generations that this console can play as part of the library. For example, you could play GameCube games on the Wii. We're not going to give credit to the Wii for the games that were released on GameCube.
Right. We're not going to necessarily rank the Wii above the GameCube and just say, well, I can play all my GameCube games on there. Why do I need a GameCube?
Right. We're separating it, but with obviously remakes, HD ports, we'll count those because those are different enough and improve on the game for the most part.
I will say that I didn't think about any of that when I made my list.
Right.
I kind of ranked them as their own separate thing. I didn't think about backwards compatibility.
It's something to take into consideration when you're thinking about the console as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not going to... Listen, some consoles don't have you can't play NES on SNES. Like it's not going to hold too much weight.
Yeah.
But it's there. Also, we're taking into consideration everything with the console. I thought about controllers, like which consoles have the best controllers and stuff like that. That has definitely affected my ranking.
Yeah.
So I think the best way to go about this is to go console by console instead of up and down our list, because then we'll be talking about different consoles.
Yeah.
So do you want to start from the newest or the oldest and then work our way through?
Your call. I don't care. I can go either way.
I think it's gonna. Let's start with the newest. I think that is gonna be a good place to start because it's fresh. I think where we place it might surprise some people. So the Switch 2, the most recent Nintendo console, releasing last year. Right off the bat, where do you have it on your personal list?
For me, I have the Switch 2 at number 3.
Interesting. Okay. I threw a number 5 on mine.
Okay.
I honestly, like, the console is great. It's super powerful. And, of course, you can play Switch 1 games, but I just feel like it's too early in its life cycle to be on top of a lot of these other consoles. I feel like the library is not big enough, even though the games that have come out have been amazing. Some of my favorite games of all time, like Bonanza. I just feel like it's too young of a console.
Okay. I fair enough. I put it at number 3 on my list because, and I don't know if this is kind of breaking the rules that we had just set about, backwards compatibility, things like that. But one of the things that I felt was that while it wasn't super innovative compared to the Switch 1, I thought that it did everything the Switch 1 did, but just better. Because it is a sequel console, I guess. The biggest comparison I have is comparing it to the Switch 1, which I think it's clearly better than. It's more powerful. It has some added features using, mouse controls with the Joy-Cons.
Yeah.
Like it's just everything that you had with the Switch 1 that you loved about it. And then just added a little bit more. It can run games, better than the Switch, right? Like a lot of those games that they put onto the Switch, your Red Deads, your Skyrims, all those big games that the Switch may have at times had trouble running because
It definitely had trouble.
because of just the capabilities of it. It did all that but better, and I love the Switch. And again, I don't even own a Switch 2, but all the experience I've gotten is from obviously playing with your Switch 2.
Yeah,
and I've just had a hard time finding places where it comes up short from what I want. Again, the Switch 2 is everything that everything I felt lacking in the Switch 1, the Switch 2 had.
Yeah, I feel that. And they giving all these Switch 1 games like HD updates and stuff like that for the Switch 2, like that's been great. There's Switch 2 versions of Switch 1 games, which again is kind of flooding the library with like fake new games because it's just the old games.
Yeah.
And like I said, the lineup for the Switch 2 has been amazing. Bonanza, Mario Kart World, Kirby Air Riders. But then something that I've looked at, and I think we're about to come over the other side of the hill on this, is that we're still getting Switch 2 games that are releasing on Switch 1.
Yeah.
Like Metroid Prime 4, Pokemon Legends ZA. Like, there hasn't been that push up until, I think, recently when Pocopia came out, that, there was that urge to need a Switch 2, because you could still kind of enjoy some of these titles that were coming out.
Oh, sure.
So you had it at 3 out
Yeah.
of 5. I feel like this is the perfect scenario for us to meet in the middle.
Meet in the middle, put 4?
Meet in the middle, put
Yeah.
it at 4.
Sure.
And I feel like once the dust settles here, we might, at the end of the episode, move some things around that...
Yeah, we'll give ourselves, it's your show, so we can do whatever we want.
That's right.
If we at the end we want to tweak it once everything is kind of laid out there,
Yeah.
I think that's totally fine.
Because we might convince each other of one console's better than maybe we thought, or worse.
Yeah.
Well, this is going to roll right into the conversation of the OG Switch. It's been out for a while now. It has a great library.
Mm-hmm.
Where did you put the Switch 1 on your personal list?
So I put that at 5.
Interesting. I put that at number 2.
Really?
I put that at number 2. I think The Switch One has one of the best libraries of all time. You have like Odyssey, Breath of the Wild, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. You have so many amazing games, and even up until the final days of the console, you were getting stuff like Jamboree, and just so many amazing games mixed in there. You had Splatoon 2 and 3, Smash Brothers Ultimate. Like, there's so many titles that just like are the best in their series that are on the Switch. I'm not saying Odyssey's the best Mario, but like that, it's up there.
Yeah.
And Breath of the Wild is one of the best games ever made.
Yeah. I think this is where my, when I make the list, I think about certain things, and then now that we're talking about it, I'm thinking about other things. You're definitely right on a lot of those points. For me, there's just other things that I guess I would rather play, other consoles I'd rather play. For me, playing handheld was always a little uncomfortable. I always had to buy those additional grips that you could slide the Switch into to make my hands more comfortable. Things like that. Again, Odyssey, love, all those titles you just named. But I don't know if I would necessarily agree. Like I would rather go play Mario 64 or Sunshine over Odyssey personally. And again, that might be me.
Which both of those games you could play. I know this doesn't. I mean, they're ports, but Mario 3D All Stars.
Yeah, which is true.
And like it's really hard to figure out what to consider and what not to consider, because like those two games that you named both obviously are owned by GameCube and N64 at the end of the day.
Yeah, and just I could foresee this whole episode being us putting something high on the list because of this reason, and then putting something low on the list because of the same reason. You know what I mean? Like, it's weird now that like now that I have someone else to bounce stuff off of. Like, you're right. A lot of those titles, maybe I should have put this higher. Again, I put the Switch 2 higher than the Switch 1 because, capability wise, it does everything better. But again, some of those titles that you named are obviously owned to Switch 1. And, if we're taking out the fact that you can play those on Switch 2, maybe Switch 1 goes a little higher.
Yeah. Where do you feel comfortable slotting in Switch 1 right now? Where we're at? I will say I'm okay sticking it with your 5 because the other consoles that are above it, I had a tough time ordering those. So like I could definitely see those three, 1, 2, and 3 being taken by 3 other consoles.
Sure, let's stick it at 5. And again, no pressure. We can always tweak it at the end.
Yeah. Okay. The next console in the lineup, which I feel like we're both in agreement on. Everybody else is probably expecting this, the Wii U. In my personal list, I'm dropping that at 8.
8.
It just has such a weak library.
Yeah.
I respect what it did, because I think without the Wii U we wouldn't have the Switch, because you got the gamepad, and like you do get games like Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. Breath of the Wild was also released on Wii U.
Yeah.
But it just felt so barren when it came to games.
Yeah. It's the out of all these consoles, it's the one I have the least experience on, and there's probably a reason for that. I feel like, again, like you said, it is probably the bridge that got us to Switch. But if it never came out and we just went from Wii to Switch, I think I would have been just fine. I don't. There's nothing about it. I feel like it's. I mean, I could be wrong about this, but I feel like its lifespan was short-lived in the sense that, like, I feel like the majority of people, like, when it came out, it wasn't as crazy as when the Wii came out. That was
That
like
took the world by storm.
It took the world by storm.
Yeah.
And I feel like in that era where Wii U was the newest console, I felt like maybe people felt like it wasn't different enough. And like most people you talk to, like they're still talking about Wii, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. Wii was such a big thing, like a big event for the world. Even people who weren't gamers were playing it, and then the Wii U dropped, and it kind of, I mean, there's no other way to say it. It was probably one of the lowest points for Nintendo, at least in more recent years.
Yeah.
Like, and maybe one of the reasons why you feel like it was kind of short lived. I don't know the exact release dates for each of these consoles, so I don't know how long their lifespans were. But like, you weren't like, the big Mario game was 3D World, and then Super Mario Bros. New Super Mario Bros. U. Like, you didn't have that staple 3D Mario game.
Yeah.
I mean, people argue 3D World is that, but.
And again, I don't have much experience on the Wii U, but I feel like some of the things it did were kind of a mashup of other things that other consoles did better. Like any kind of limited motion controls, the Wii did better. And then, you could play on the TV, but then you also have the gamepad. It's like now we're just playing like a weird version of like a DS almost with like the dual screen.
And the 3DS was still high up on, like, they were still releasing great games for the 3DS at that time.
Yeah.
Which maybe overshadowed Wii U a bit.
Yeah. And I think that the DS and the 3DS also, like growing up, it felt like the handheld consoles were supplementary to the home consoles,
Mm-hmm.
meaning like, hey, here's your home console. This is the main thing. But if you have to leave the house and you want something quick to do in the car or whatever, like, we made this little thing for you to enjoy as well. And you'd get like, here's a game on a home console. Here's the kind of scaled down version for your handheld thing that, like, again, you're going on a long car ride, whatever. You can also play it on the handheld. They didn't feel like they were necessarily designed to be like, this is a console. It almost felt like a plan B, or like a, hey, listen, if you want to game somewhat, but you just don't have the opportunity to sit on your couch and game, here's another option.
Right.
Whereas the 3DS, to me, that felt more like its own console.
Yeah. Like, you were getting a lot of great titles for that. And maybe that's why the Wii U fell so flat, is because it was kind of trying to do what the Switch does, which is remove the need for a handheld console. The Switch does both. The Switch is your handheld. It is your home console.
Mm-hmm.
Wii U is kind of that in between. It was trying to be both.
Yeah. I think
So
slap that at 8 and let's get out of the Wii U territory.
yeah, Wii U at 8. I don't think that's going to be changing.
I don't think so either.
Jumping right next to the next console, over to the next console, is the Wii. I feel like that's one that we probably have one of the most experience with when it comes to these consoles, just because that hit right when we were at the right age for it.
Yeah.
Where do you have the Wii on your personal list?
So I have the Wii at number 6.
Oh, so do I.
Perfect.
I have it at 6. Like I said, none of these consoles, I'm just going to write it in at 6. None of these consoles are bad by any means.
I don't hate any of these.
But like the Wii, it's just not my personal favorite way to game. Mm-hmm. Motion controls are great, but a little gimmicky. A lot of times I just want to be on the couch, controller in hand.
Yeah.
But the Wii has some of the best games.
Yeah.
I mean, we just finished Galaxy. We're doing a lot of that, like Galaxy, Wii Sports.
Which you can argue that Galaxy doesn't need to be on the Switch. Or, I'm sorry, on the Wii.
No.
Like, it's not super motion control heavy. They put it out on Switch, and you don't really use any motion controls. You can play it with the normal controller, which is how I would prefer to play a game like that. I will say there's some absolute bangers. Wii Sports is god tier video games.
Yeah, Wii Sports Resort are both amazing.
They're the biggest reason that I had it so low is because, again, this was kind of in our era where, it came out. I remember going to school at lunch, one of my friends saying my mom went out, she got one. Like, it was like, if you found one, like, go play the lottery, because it was like,
Yeah,
it felt like they were hard to get, especially at a time when we were so young. It's not like we could go drive ourselves to GameStop, reserve the console. It was like we were kind of at the will of like, hey, are our parents going to go out and find this for? Are they going to know how to go get it?
Exactly.
Like are they going to be standing in line or whatever? And obviously, we lucked out and we got one that Christmas. And at the time, I loved it, but I quickly found out that in terms of motion gaming, at the time, just because like the ideas and the fantasy of motion gaming was so far ahead, meaning, you watch movies from the early 2000s and the 90s and it'll have a kid putting on what's now basically a VR headset, and it's like they're in this world, and like that's what I wanted out of Wii and out of motion gaming at the time, and it just wasn't there yet.
Yeah.
For example, a game I remember, we had one of the NBA games, and I remember it was super fun to we would do like the 3-point shooting contest all the time. And the biggest thing that I remember noticing and not liking was that the motions were not one-to-one, meaning like in VR today, you go like this with your hands, your guy on the screen goes like this with his hands.
Yeah.
Whereas that, you take the Wii remote and you go and you do the motion of like shooting a jump shot, and it doesn't necessarily follow your movement. It's more so your movement and the timing of it activates an animation.
Yeah.
It's like your movement is the equivalent of hitting a button.
Right.
And which was cool. At the time, I remember just not liking that as much.
I think it's better than it being in between that, though. Like, I think I enjoy Wii motion controls better than I enjoy, like, an Xbox Kinect game.
Yeah, Xbox Kinect was a disaster.
It's
in my personal opinion.
Yeah.
Again,
like,
so some go ahead, say your point, and then I'll say kind of what I'm thinking.
Just the in between of the Xbox Kinect, and I don't want to, get off the rails too much here and start talking about Xbox, but like Xbox Kinect was an in between. It was trying to be what VR is now, where it's one-to-one moving.
Yeah.
But it wasn't there yet. I think Nintendo knew their limit, and they made the motion controls to a lot of games like complementary instead of the entire experience.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of what I'm saying, is that the technology and the hardware wasn't necessarily there yet. But at that time, I remember when I was growing up, there was a place local to us. It was called Sports World. And it was kind of like a Chuck E. Cheese, but more, I don't want to say adult friendly. It was
Less rats.
Less rats, less cheese. But a like an age group above. Mm-hmm. Like, they had arcade games. Like you go to Chuck E. Cheese, there's not a whole lot of like the arcade games that involve a gun controller shooting at the screen. It's a lot more toned down for like younger kids, where Sports World had shooting arcade games, fighting games like Marvel vs. Capcom, Mortal Kombat, that kind of thing. Dance Dance Revolution was huge. One of the things I remember them having was it was basically a simulator. In modern times now, I guess the closest thing to compare it to would be like a golf simulator, where you have the screen in front of you and you can see things. But essentially the way that it worked was you would stand in this box, there was a screen in front of you, and your shadow would be cast onto the screen. And there was games where it was like they would kick soccer balls at you, and you had to reach to kind of block the soccer balls from getting into the goal.
Yeah.
And it was like, if you moved, your guy moved. And there was definitely some of that on Kinect. I know Kinect had that. I know we had stuff like that. I remember I lost my mind when the Red Steel trailer came out, and the guy shooting the gun, and all of a sudden you see the person holding the Wiimote, and they go like this, and the guy on the screen turns the gun like this, and it was just like a very fluid, like one-to-one kind of thing, and like that stuff was cool. But again, like going back to like Kinect and like there were games like there was like a I forget what actual game it was in, but there was a boxing one where it was kind of 1-to-1 and it worked. But then I remember I had another fighting game where it was a 2D like fighting game, like Mortal Kombat or whatever.
Yeah.
And again, you would throw punches and your guy is not punching where you punch. It activates an animation.
Right.
And I didn't realize it at first. I loved Wii when it first came out. I loved playing all those games. But the games, I think it falls short when it comes to some of those games where it's like, this is a game that could be played with a regular controller and I could just hit buttons. It doesn't need motion controls.
Yeah.
Whereas like Wii Sports, I think that only works one way, and that's on the Wii. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, that needs motion controls. And I feel like when you look at a lot of the library, it fell short on some of those things.
Yeah. They didn't... It was like a mix of games that were built for the Wii and then games that were just made and were on the Wii because that was the console that Nintendo...
Exactly, yeah. Like Mario Galaxy, it's like, hey, this could have been on GameCube or Switch and not used motion controls, but because the Wii was the console that happened to be out, it's like, well, we got to put it on our current premier console.
Yeah.
So they made it work.
Okay. That does it for the Wii, sitting at 6. I'm glad we both agreed on the Wii and the Wii U. Mm-hmm. I don't think those are going to be moving. Next is GameCube, something, or a console that we played a whole heck of a lot growing up. Mm-hmm. It was probably one of our main consoles growing up. Where do you have it on your personal list?
Where do you have it on your personal list? Because I know it's different than mine.
I originally had it at number 4.
Okay.
I feel like something with the GameCube is that, like, over time it got great games, but this was like the first time Nintendo really was putting games from other consoles on their consoles as well. Like, I know Resident Evil 4 was on there, originally GameCube exclusive, but like you get a game that releases on GameCube and PS2, and I just feel like a lot of the time those games were better on PS2. And I feel like the lineup for Nintendo first party games, they're really good. Like, you get Sunshine. Sunshine is one of our favorites. You get Wind Waker, an amazing game, and you get like Metroid Prime, which is a game that I beat recently. It's just you get a couple really, really good ones, and then I feel like it gets a little shallow pretty quick.
Fair enough. I had it at number 1.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
I think it is just perfect. I'll start kind of with the hardware, and then I'll go into the the game library a little bit.
It's the best video game controller of all time, I'll say that.
Best video game controller of all time. The clicks that you get on the triggers are so tactile and so satisfying.
That like extra when you're pressing down, and then it just goes.
It's curved so perfectly for your fingers. Like, everything about it is great. Controller is number 1 controller for me. The GameCube itself, it's the only console. So like growing up, we have a TV room upstairs. We have the basement down here where there's a TV. Sometimes we would move the consoles up into our room if we wanted to play in our room. It's the only console that, like, if you said to me, like, hey, you want to play GameCube downstairs? And I said, yeah, sure, but it's upstairs in my room. Let me go get it. I could roll it down the stairs to you, and it would be perfectly fine.
It is a durable
It is
console.
a durable console.
Yeah.
Getting into the game library, I think we got games that, we just don't get games like that anymore. And again, you have your Sunshine, you have your Mario Kart Double Dash, couple Mario Parties. We had, there were some first-person shooters. We had a couple like Rainbow Six games on GameCube. Some of the Splinter Cells got put over there. But then you had games like when's the last time a game like Billy Hatcher came out? You know what I mean? Random stuff like that I remember playing and I remember loving to death. I think they knew their limitations on what they could and couldn't do. And it was just such a good jump from previous consoles where it's like, hey, we now have a controller with 2 sticks, one for the character, one for the camera.
Yeah.
Which is huge. Tons of games that I like, right? Tons of 007 games. Back then it felt like there was more, like every game would come out and it'd be like, okay, it's coming out for PlayStation, GameCube, and whatever other consoles were.
I mean, I feel like GameCube and PlayStation 2 shared a lot of like that was
Yeah.
the 2 big ones at the time.
Yeah, and you'd get some cool exclusives like NBA Street V3. That was out on PlayStation and it was out on GameCube. But on GameCube, they're like, hey, you could play as Mario, Luigi, and Peach.
Yeah, you can.
And like stuff like that, I thought was super cool. Maybe the PlayStation had some, technological superior features.
I mean, DVD player.
Yeah,
that was like the biggest thing that everyone freaked out about.
That was huge at the time. We had enough DVD players around that it was like whatever, but that was a cool feature. And on top of that, again, not that we ever had this, but the ability to play Game Boy Advance games, and stuff like that on your TV, super duper cool. And again, that came out at around the time. I remember when that came out, and that was like, that took over my world. Not even getting the console, but wanting the console. Like, it was that buildup of like this new thing. Mario Sunshine was like the premiere, like, here you go.
Yeah.
This is the game that's going to be associated with this console. And I remember wanting it. I remember finally getting it, and it was a mind-blowing experience.
Yeah. Now that you're saying, like, I'm thinking about more games on the console, like Luigi's Mansion. You get Melee. You get
Animal Crossing.
You get the Pokemon games. You get Coliseum and Gale of Darkness.
Yes.
Like, there are a lot of good titles when you dig a little bit deeper. I feel like I was overlooked a lot.
Yeah, and it was like, again, it was a lot of the stuff that like its predecessor kind of set out to do, but we got there.
Yeah,
and you know what I mean. Like it was the technology had caught up with the imagination, and we could do things that we sometimes tried to do on the previous console, which is the N64, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But now it could do it. You talk about like movie tie-in games, Star Wars, things like that. Like, it just had so much, and it felt like that was a time where I could go to the video game store, whether it be GameStop or whatever store was around at the time, and I can see, like, I go in there with no goal. Like, I don't know what I'm getting today, but I want to get something from the video game store. And you could look at the rack, and it's like games could have been out for 2 or 3 years at that point, but without social media, without all that kind of stuff, it was like you walked into a store, you never knew what you were going to see.
Yeah.
And part of that nostalgia, part of that era and that time period, like, that kind of is near and dear to my heart, of like walking in and not knowing what you're going to see, what you're going to get. I mean, there's still times today where we went to a local game store today, and we're just peeking through some of the older stuff, and like I pulled I guess maybe it was a PlayStation 2 game, but like I was like, dude, check this out. Never seen it before.
The Muppets game?
Yeah.
I don't know why I didn't buy that. I should have bought that. But
yeah, we're big Muppets people, and it was like I don't even remember what it was called. It was like Muppets
Party
Cruise.
Party Cruise
Again, probably something that we wouldn't play for hours and hours on end, but like I'm like, I've never seen this before.
Right, yeah.
And it's like
they do make weird games. Like, I think the gap between the like first party games and the other games has widened since the GameCube. Like on the GameCube, like you'd get something like Muppets Party Cruise, and that would stand against, maybe one of the other, like Luigi's Mansion. Not like to this day, but when I was a kid, I would see it. Oh, I love the Muppets. Let me grab the Muppets.
Yeah.
And nowadays, I feel like you can kind of spot the shit among the diamonds.
Yeah.
Like it's so easy to see what is worth your time and what's not.
Yeah, you almost didn't have the ability to back then.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, how many games, like do we see nowadays that go into like an early access and it's kind of like let's wait and see, and then by the time it gets to a spot where hey, maybe I would have liked this, it's like the wave is kind of already passed and I'm on to something else. Like back then there wasn't streaming, there wasn't like YouTube wasn't super a thing like it is now. Like if you saw you would watch the trailer for the game on TV if you happened to come across the commercial, and you would either make the decision, yes, I want it, or no, I don't. And you didn't have the ability to go watch someone play the first hour of the game to see if it's something you'd be interested in. It's like you'd see the trailer, and whatever your imagination created is what you thought.
Yeah.
And, it was just such an interesting time, and I wish we could somehow get back to that, but,
You have definitely convinced me to bring the GameCube up from 4.
Mm-hmm.
Do we want to stick it at 1? I might be down with it at 1. I really we're gonna go back and forth. There's 2 consoles that are. After this conversation, I'm between 2 consoles that are 1 and 2. Like nothing else can really fit in those spots.
I agree, and I feel like I know what they are, and I feel like your number 1 is my number 2.
All right, so I'm gonna throw GameCube at 1 right now.
Mm-hmm.
Which is gonna bring us to the next console, which is the Nintendo 64.
Mm-hmm.
Which is my number 1. It's my all-time favorite console. I think it just has an insane lineup of games on it, and it's just so timeless. I feel like the graphics weren't striving to be realistic enough at the time, so they hold up to this day.
Yeah, I would agree. I love Nintendo 64. I mean, that was so much of my childhood, and I loved it. But again, what got the biggest things that got to me as far as ranking it, I put it at number 2 because I love it. There's the nostalgia factor, but it was also a big jump into, doing things in 3D and that kind of thing. And so many classics on there, right? Like Mario 64, Smash, like all these games that, I love. But again, like I would probably rather play Sunshine. I would probably rather...
The house is creaking.
Yeah, the house is
creaking.
Yeah.
It's alive.
I don't know if you guys heard that, but the wall just made a crazy sound. I would rather play Sunshine over 64. I would rather play Melee over the original sometimes, and if for no other reason than just the character library is bigger. So I think it just fell short. I love the controller, but I hate the controller.
Yeah, it's one of the worst designed controllers ever.
Yeah,
it has a whole side that you don't use or can't use.
Yeah.
I just my big thing is, I mean, it's more of a personal love for it. Like, I love the simplicity of the graphics. Like I said, they're not striving to be realistic. They're still in the realm of being cartoony. But you get Ocarina of Time, Mario 64, GoldenEye, you get Mario Kart 64, Banjo. Like, there's so many like iconic games that, first of all, are still talked about to this day, but affected games overall today. Like Mario 64 is just a masterpiece. It literally laid the foundation for 3D platformers.
Yeah.
And you said about so many of these other games. But I will say, I think after going back and forth with the GameCube, I'm comfortable putting the N64 at 2, solely because the GameCube controller is just so good compared to the N64 one.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, it's tough. Like, that's one I have to battle, is like, I so badly want to say that the N64 is my favorite console, because I think maybe it feels like it has a little bit more heart, if that makes sense. Like, that just, I don't know. Maybe it's the nostalgia thing. Maybe it's just because I have so much time on that console. Um, like I had it at an age where it's like, you know, you couldn't imagine anything better. You know what I mean? Like the way things are now, it's like a new console comes out, like the PS5 or whatever, and it's like, dude, this is so crazy. It's so realistic. The controller haptics where it's like you're pulling back a bow and you feel tension in the trigger, like things like that are fantastic. And you'd be like, how could it get better than this? But it will. But
Yeah.
and I can, now that I'm older and I have more whatever you want to call it, wherewithal of like what's going on around me. Like I know things will improve. Like it's only ever going to get better. But back then I didn't think like that.
You thought it was that.
You know what I mean? Like
This is the best this is gonna look ever.
yeah.
Like,
So it's just
yeah.
it to me it has a lot of heart and it still holds up to this day. I will say I did find a new love for retro gaming as a whole, but Nintendo 64 in general. Just from going back to the old hardware, meaning hooking up the N64 to an old CRTV, it makes all the difference. There was a night where we tried to play GoldenEye and it was on the N64
Ooh.
on a new, HD like flat screen, and it didn't hit.
Yeah,
And
it was pretty bad.
yeah, and I don't necessarily know why, but as soon as you hook it up on a TV like this, where it was designed to kind of how's that game? It's like
it's almost a part of the console, like of those consoles back then. Like they were designed knowing they were going to be played on these TVs. They look better, they play better.
Yeah,
there's probably some scientific reason behind it.
Yeah,
about how the TV projects its pictures, but I could just say it's if you're going to play N64, try and do it on an older television. And
any retro game, SNES, NES, anything like that. Try to play on a TV that's from that time period.
Yeah.
And again, they play better, they look better. I can't point out specific reasons why. I just know that it's better.
So, N64.
Mm-hmm.
Sticking at number 2?
It ain't going at number 3 or lower than that.
Yeah, that's true. I feel like we both know where these two consoles are going to go, but I'm curious on where we have them in our personal list.
Mm-hmm.
Super Nintendo. What do you got?
I had it at 4.
I had it at 3.
Okay.
I had the GameCube at 4, SNES at 3.
Yeah.
I mean, it's at the beginning of this episode we were talking about it. It just is a masterclass in what it gives you. Obviously, limited hardware and stuff at the time, so you weren't getting 3D games for the most part, but Donkey Kong Country, Super Mario World, Super Metroid, like there's just too many games that are masterclasses in the genre that they're in. It's just such a good console.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, not that there's any backwards compatibility, but kind of comparing it to the NES, its predecessor, it just does everything better. It's like I actually thought about this today while we were at the game store. I was looking at some handheld games, and I was looking at, some Game Boy stuff versus Game Boy Color stuff. And it's like, that's kind of where I make the distinction of like, Game Boy was great, and I'm sure it captivated the world when it first came out. I never had an original Game Boy. I had original Game Boy games that I would just play on my Game Boy Color, but Game Boy Color games just felt like such a step above.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I feel with the SNES versus the NES.
And the thing is, like, obviously the NES is the last console we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
I feel like way more SNES titles hold up today than NES titles.
Yeah.
Like,
I would agree with that.
Like, when you're going into an NES game, you don't know if it's going to be like, wow, this is going to be brutal without me looking up stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be at this mind-numbingly for hours trying to figure out, oh, I got to place a bomb by this wall. When the SNES, it really felt like when they fine-tuned the way they make games, and they really had an identity at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. The controller is slightly more comfortable.
But still it keeps the simplicity of
Still keeps the simplicity.
just a couple buttons.
Yeah.
That's all you need.
Yeah. I mean, it's called the SNES, you know? It's a better version of the NES.
It's the Super Nintendo. So I safe to say SNES is number 3 on our list.
Yeah.
And that leaves number 7 on our overall list for the NES. What did you have the NES at 7?
I did.
So did I. I had my personal list underneath, so Eric could not see.
Mm-hmm.
But the NES, we'll just kind of roll up to a small conversation about it and how we feel, because it has so many the start of so many existing franchises that we love. But like I said, like, games don't hold up as well as like the SNES or like the N64. And I know that's just because it's an older console.
Yeah.
But just a lot of the games just are almost tedious to play. Doesn't mean I'm not going to go play them. I do love playing the NES.
And it won't mean that we won't enjoy them.
Right. A bad game doesn't mean a game's not fun.
Right. Yeah. And again, some of that is like I need to make it clear. I love the NES.
Yeah.
So much. But again, it's unfortunate that some of the games we play now for the first time, I do play it and have the thought in my head of like, okay, this is something that, like, you'll come across some sort of what's the word I'm thinking of? Some sort of thing you have to do, or like whatever, or something will take place, and you're like, it felt like this could have been done better, but they were kind of handcuffed to what they had to work with at the time, which you can't really fault them for, because, you know, the system is how many decades old.
Right.
Like, it's not a fair complaint playing the games today. So that's just why I dropped it down. Again, it might not be fair. I love the NES, but 9 times out of 10, I would rather play an SNES game.
Absolutely. I think one thing that the NES does have that is great, though, is there's so many games that you just pop in, you can play for 10, 15 minutes, turn it off, and you're done.
Yeah.
You have your little bit of fun, almost like mini-game type style games.
Yeah.
But then you also have, like, Zelda, Mario, Metroid.
Yeah.
The classics.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, overall, I'm going to go down our list here.
Mm-hmm.
See if we want to make any edits. I have one on my mind already that I think I want to make. But
okay.
Number 1, we have GameCube. Number 2, the Nintendo 64. 3, the Super Nintendo. 4, the Switch 2. 5, the Switch. 6, the Wii. 7, the NES. And 8, the Wii U. I'm pretty comfortable with this list. I think I would switch the Switch 2 and Switch. That was a weird sentence to say right there. I would swap 4 and 5, putting the Switch 1 at number 4, the Switch 2 at number 5.
I will agree with that.
And I feel like everything else I'm pretty comfortable with. I mean, a lot of these, weirdly enough, we unknowingly agreed on. Wii U at 8, NES at 7, Wii at 6.
You know what's crazy? I had Switch 2 at number 3 on my list. And I had the Wii at 5.
At 5 or 6?
6. But now that I'm seeing the Switch 2 and the Wii next to each other, I almost want to switch those.
I'm okay with that. Like I said, the Switch 2 it's so much younger of a console. It doesn't have
That's kind of why.
It just doesn't have the library that the Wii has. I think the Wii can take the Switch 2 over. I'm totally on
and I feel like I kind of bashed the Wii a little bit when we were talking about it. But again, I love all these consoles except the Wii U. And you know, so it really is hard to kind of figure out where you're going to put them. And like, again, I made my own list. I put Switch 2 at 3. And then some of the points you've made about it being a young console, and how much am I ranking it based on what hasn't happened yet? Meaning, right, like, we will get more games and they will be great, and I know that. but we don't have them yet.
Once they finally drop that new 3D Mario game, then it might be a different story.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I'll still holding my breath for that one.
Yeah.
So why don't you just give a quick read of where we're at with everything in order?
Yeah. All right. So I think this is our final list here. 1, GameCube. 2, Nintendo 64. 3, Super Nintendo. 4, the Switch 1. 5, the Wii. 6, the Switch 2. 7, the NES. And 8, the Wii U. I like it.
Yeah.
I think that's a great list.
I think that's where we're going to lock it in.
And like I said, don't hate any of these consoles. I mean, the Wii U, we don't really have the most experience with, just because that was a very low point in Nintendo. I feel we weren't on it as much as some of these other consoles.
Yeah.
But just because the Switch 2 is at 6 doesn't mean it's not a great console. I totally recommend it to anybody and everybody. But that's it. I mean, it's crazy how much it differs from. Like, thinking about it now, the Wii should definitely be above the Switch 2. I'm totally down with that.
Yeah, and I think big shout out to gaming since the 80s, kind of making me think about the stuff I talked about, when we were talking about his hot take. Some of the things I was saying and thinking out loud in that moment kind of made me rethink my own list. Mm-hmm. I'd be very curious to see what his list looks like.
Yeah, everybody who's watching this episode, comment below what your personal list of these 8 consoles are, because I feel like it varies, and it's interesting to see because it's really a matter of when you grew up.
Yeah, it really is a matter of when you grew up, what you kind of link yourself to, and again, like a game like Billy Hatcher, I mentioned earlier, like we had that and we played it, and there may be people out there who are like, that game was awful. Like, you're this weird chicken boy in this world of chicken people, and you're rolling eggs around and all this stuff. But, like, for whatever reason, we had it and we played it a ton.
Yeah, we did.
And, someone else may feel like that about a Wii U game, that makes that bump up their list. And
Absolutely, yeah.
So it's really, nothing about this is necessarily based on facts. It's based on our opinions. And
except for the fact that the Wii U is number 8. That's a fact.
Yeah. So I'd be curious to see what other people do, especially, I would like to know people's list and kind of what age range they fall in, to just kind of see that data would be interesting.
If you do comment your list of Nintendo consoles, comment which one was your first Nintendo console that you got, because I feel like that is gonna give a lot of insight on your thought process behind your own list.
Yeah. And I'm sure there's things that we're overlooking, like certain games on certain consoles that we just didn't even think about. Like we recently got a little bit more into, like with NES, like the Nintendo Zapper, and playing some of those games, Hogan's Alley and Duck Hunt and things like that. And I'm like, dude, this is awesome. Like it's just such a fun thing. Like we've had a couple nights where we sat here and just passed the Zapper back and forth a couple times and just like, hey, who's going to get the high score? And it was simple. It was fun.
Right.
It's not something I'm necessarily dying to do again, but it was fun in that moment. And that could strike at any time where it's like, hey, let's give that a run.
And not to bring the conversation back to our list, but like the NES is one of the only consoles that you can do that with. Like, hey, do you want to have an NES night? And then you come over, we pop in 5, 6, 7 NES games.
Yeah.
The only one that the only console that I think might be in that same realm is surprisingly the Wii. Hey, you want to have a Wii night? Oh yeah, Wii Sports Resort, the Wii Play games, Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games. Like those are that's something that those two consoles have in common.
Yeah, we've run into that a couple of times where it's like, hey, does anyone want to have a Super Smash Brothers night? And it's like, you're so amped up for it, you all get together, and then you realize one person there has played it a lot more than everyone else consistently, and it just turns into a slaughter fest, and it's like, well, pizza's getting cold, I'm kind of done with this, let's move on.
Let's play something else. But nothing beats like playing Duck Hunt or playing Wii Sports.
Yeah.
Like, you're always it's always a good time.
Yeah.
Those party games. All right. I think that tops off our list. And pretty much this episode.
Yeah.
If you guys enjoyed this episode and want to listen to any past or future episodes,
Real
what you
quick,
got?
before we close this out, I'm just curious. What are you playing right now? Is there anything you're playing that I don't? That like obviously we're working through Galaxy together. Is there anything you're playing right now that we're not doing together? That
Metroid Prime 2, I'm on. I've been enjoying that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Pocopia is out. I've been locking in on that. I think that's pretty much it. There's a lot of games on the horizon for me that I want to play.
Yeah.
Just buying time until James Bond First Light comes out.
Yeah.
007. And Yoshi and the Mysterious Book comes out. I'm really just buying time for that. But that's pretty much it. Like every time you're on, we talk about it. I'm inching closer and closer to just starting Resident Evil, which I'm not doing without you.
Yeah.
But that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
Are you playing? What you got going on?
So as you know, I just finished up Lucky Luke on Game Boy Color, which was an absolute delight. That game was so fun. It was, again, I love, Westerns and things like that. I did just start a replay of Red Dead Redemption 2 with my wife, which has been fun. But we've also, me and her, we've been playing a lot of Cuphead and a lot of Overcooked together. Which is fun. But also this, which I haven't told you yet, actually, is the other day after the Mario Day celebration, and, once my TV and my consoles came back to my house, I brought the GameCube downstairs, I set it up, and I popped in Simpsons Hit and Run for a quick minute.
Classic.
And I was like, you know what? I think it's about time that I give that another playthrough, because I've completed it a number of times. I've never 100%ed it. I was actually, me and our sister were doing a 100% playthrough at one point. God, it's got to, I think I was living here at the time. She had already moved out, so it's at least 3 years ago, but probably longer, where we were going through each level, collecting all the cards, doing everything, 100%ing everything before we moved on. And we didn't quite finish it, which I would like to. But yeah, that's a game that, again, is very near and dear to...
an underrated game.
I don't think it is. I don't think there's anyone out there who talks badly about that game.
No, but it's not that people talk badly about it, just that people don't talk enough about it.
Sure. I feel like any game that is tied into an IP already, like it automatically falls down the totem pole in some way. It's weird to think that one of my favorite games of all time is a Simpsons game, because the Simpsons were their own thing, the TV show, everything like that first. So I think that a lot of people almost don't consider it a a video game first.
Yeah,
it's almost kind of like a little side piece that
that's kind of like a relic of the past. Think about NES and SNES.
Yeah,
you get your Simpsons games. The Ninja Turtle games are some of the best.
That's true. There's actually so many Simpsons games out there. I'd love to collect all those. But yeah, so that's what I'm doing right now. Again, just waiting for
Bond.
Obviously, again, another game that's tied to an IP, but not in the same way.
Right. Bond's a book first.
And then it was movies and all.
Now it's. It's been games for a while. It's been games for
as long as we've been alive.
Well,
longer.
There's Genesis games.
Yeah.
Is there any James Bond NES games? There's SNES. There's James Bond Jr.
That's also on NES.
Yeah, so we're talking. James Bond has been in the video game business for probably, I'll say 35 years, but probably more.
Yeah, there was some earlier stuff, for sure. There is other stuff on NES too. I think, I'm getting my titles mixed up, but I know that there's other ones, some side scrollers and things like that.
Yeah, Game Boy stuff.
Game Boy stuff for sure. I love those.
So James Bond.
Maybe I'll get into that next. That's actually what I'm going to do next.
The one that you have.
It's for original Game Boy. I don't know who makes it.
It's like top down.
Yeah, it's like if you put a screenshot of that James Bond game and like Pokemon Red next to each other, you would think they're the same game. So I've been meaning to. I've got through the first like level or two of that a couple of times and just never went back to it. I think it's probably about time. I mean, in reality, I could probably do it in like a couple of hours. Finish it, but
Game Boy games are never long.
No. So maybe that's what I'll do next too. As well. I feel like maybe we should do a run of hit and run together at some point.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's it. I just wanted to check in, see what you were doing, see if there was
of
anything
course.
that I wasn't up to speed on.
Yeah, I think it's just kind of playing through what I've been playing through.
Yeah.
But a lot on the horizon.
Yeah, definitely.
I'll say that.
As always.
So, if you enjoyed this episode of the Button Press podcast and you want to listen to any past or future episodes, you can check out the Button Press podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and now officially on Apple Podcasts. Figured out how to do that. So that should be good to go if that's your primary way to listen to podcasts. If you want to see more from us, we post a lot of shorter content on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. A lot of fun minigame type videos.
All the stuff that you see nowadays, like there's those fun short videos where you could play along too. I think those are super fun. I've been seeing a lot of the ones that you put out, and I think they're fantastic.
Yeah, something to continue the conversation just outside this big episode of the podcast. So you can check us out on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, YouTube Shorts. Also, this is the first official episode where this is a thing. We now have a Button Press Discord that you can join if you want to, once again, continue the conversation outside the comment sections of the videos that we post. You can join there. I'll put the link down below for that as well. But I think that concludes everything. Thank you so much for popping in for another episode.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I love getting on here whenever I get a chance, whenever you invite me, and I look forward to doing more, and I look forward to seeing other people on here as well. So,
yeah. All right, well, I think that's everything. We'll see you guys in the next episode of the Button Press Podcast.